We'd like to welcome Abhishek Goyal in our Purple Quarter podcast. Thank you so much for coming here on a Saturday, Abhishek. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Rupa. Really glad to be here.
Awesome. So, just so that the audiences know, Abhishek, you've done your Bachelor in Computer Science in IIT Kanpur, and then you went on to you were a technologist. You're part of companies like Yahoo and Amazon, and then you moved on to becoming a founder, 3 times founder, and also played a bit of a VC's role as well at Accel, right?
Correct.
Extremely different hats that you've donned in the entire career span that I can see, right? And I think 2013 is when you started off Traction. How does the entire vision come to you? How did Traction as a company come to you in your head?
I think it started as early as middle of 2011 when Neha first came and told me that she think we can build a business here. And at that time, I was not really a co-founder to her. She was saying that, look, we do a lot of this manual work to find out companies.
Right.
And, to quote one of her stories, like during her time at Sequoia, they had these groups where somebody would track newspapers for companies, or somebody would look at all the holdings, and then if they find a new brand, they would message in their BBM group. This is the time of BBMs, right? And then they would redivide these companies within the sectors of specialization, and then they would scout companies.
Sure.
And she mentioned that, look, this is just so much manual work, right? So the first insight, we started with an insight. She said that, look, we are all technology investors and we use very little technology to do our jobs.
Correct.
And similarly, I think this work is being repeated over and over again. So every fund would do the same exercise. So if somebody would do it centrally, it would be so much more efficient. We can just reuse the same work, right? Sure. So these were 2 brief insights which she started building on this idea. And she had also already thought of a name called Traction. And during my time at Accel, I had similar experiences, right? So I used to live in Koramangala, and then we would scout different lanes. Like Koramangala used to be a hub of startups. So whenever you walk around, you will keep note of companies that exist. And then if something is interesting, you would come back home and see if it is worth meeting.
Right.
And you would visit a lot of events. And eventually, I will spend like 3 hours in an event and come back with 2 names.
Sure.
And again, I was from a programming background. So Neha was similarly from a programming background. So we thought that there has to be much more efficient way of doing this. This is just very crazy. And so we started with these 2 brief insights. We can use technology to solve this problem. And then because everybody is redoing the same work, if you do it centrally, it will become more efficient.
Sure.
So it started with 2 brief insights. And then over time, as we worked on it, it evolved. So in 2012, Neha left Sequoia for her business school. And at that time, she made first prototype. And I was still not co-founder to her then. And in 2013, I think middle of their first year and second year, she got into this program by Lightspeed in US, where it's sort of an internship program into entrepreneurship. So they basically give grants to like 6-7 teams from between Stanford and Harvard. And there you can come spend your summers, build a company, and see if you want to pursue this as a career path, or would you just go back and do a regular, go back to business school and then graduate and do a job.
Right.
And we both went there, we started, and they were our customers. In some ways, we were building it for VCs, so they were practically also our customers, not just mentors.
Correct.
So we worked very closely with them. I think one of the main partners there was called Barry Eggers. He was our mentor. And with him, sort of, we iterated what first module to build.
Sure.
And because we are both VCs, we are thought of like 10-20 different ideas in which we can, this is a piece of puzzle, right? You can start anywhere, right? Correct. So we worked with them to figure out what the first piece that we need to build. And as we started building it, we started seeing players which are doing similar things in different markets. So then we encountered players like Gartner, Bloomberg, S&Ps of the world, and we realized that this is a kind of play similar to what they are doing. So it eventually evolved into a vision where we wanted to organize information about private companies and make it easier for private market investors, corporate M&A teams to actually look at innovation.
Right.
So now our bigger vision is to sort of organize information about private companies and make it easier for innovation to flourish.
Sure.
So that is the broad agenda with which we run this.
Oh, this is superb, right, Abhishek? If you look at it, Crunchbase, I think, started off in 2007. I think it was more acceptable idea in the US.
Correct.
Now, fast forward, you brought it to India. Could you share with us how did that journey really, work out for you guys?
So I think we never saw ourselves as a US-India company per se.
Okay.
So we actually launched our first product for the US market. We came to India and built it because while we were working with them, we realized that consistently customers were saying that we need enterprise grade data. we don't want crowdsourced data because it is only it is not comprehensive. It is not as well organized. And there's a lot of marketing jargon in it. So they said that, look, Bloomberg is not contributed by companies. Bloomberg is the third-party data provider, which we can somewhat rely on. And we realized that in US, the tech talent is like as good as it gets. But I think for our business, the human in the loop element also mattered a lot. So we then came back to Bangalore after 4 or 5 months, and then we started building it here. We knew that Bangalore has as good a talent of tech as possible.
Sure.
And thankfully we did, because over time we realized that Bangalore is probably comparable or slightly better than US in terms of talent now.
Sure.
And it is available in as much volume that you need now. And back then also in 2013, we knew that the pace at which our talent quality is increasing, it will reach there. So it was somewhat of a punt, but we knew that the trend lines are there.
Right.
And because of which we came to India, but we first launched US. So all of our initial customers, so our first 2 customers were Lightspeed US and NEM.
Okay.
They were both in US. We were serving them US data sitting out of India. And in first few months, I think we just worked with these 2. Cybersecurity was our first sector that we launched.
Sure.
And at some stage, we started getting feedback from them that I wish we knew some of these companies before you told us. And that's when we knew we are ready to scale.
Sure.
It took us like roughly 8 months to launch this first version. And I think we launched India maybe a couple of months after that. Because we realized that we were sitting in India, we knew all the VCs in India, and they were starting to take data from us without actually practically paying. So we said that we might as well launch it, and that turned out to be a great decision, because in India, because we knew everybody, we were able to sell very quickly. And within like 6 to 8 months of launch, we were able to meet all our costs. So between US and India, we were sort of able to retrieve everything. But because we were preparing data sector-wise, actually we had global coverage. So if you want to look at cybersecurity sitting out of Germany, looking at German companies, we would have that data. So it was a truly global company from that perspective. Incidentally, we were based out of Bangalore because that's what we knew very well. But we never started thinking that we want to build a data company for India.
Got it.
So it was a global play. We started that, launched, like first few customers were in US. We worked closely with them, got it to a point where they really liked it. Talking about existing players, I think there were few players. There was Crunchbase, there was also, I think CB Insights was very small at that time. They were nowhere close to what they are today. All of us evolved, right?
Correct.
People talk about this whole popular quote, right? That you can't stop an idea whose time has come. And we saw it firsthand.
Sure.
Every single company actually started in 2013.
Oh,
We started in 13, Mattermark started. I think there are 2-3 more which started in that framework. And over time, a lot of us evolved. Some of them obviously got left behind, or they got bought out, they closed down, they did something. But I think we saw mushrooming of entrepreneurship firsthand in our market.
Got it.
At least like among the key players, half of them started doing that cohort. Right. And 2 of us actually started, like one other company was also Stanford alumni. So, and they didn't know Neha, or Neha didn't know them.
Okay.
So it was not as if they got inspired by each other. They independently thought of that idea, because
Interesting.
I think I think there's always a trigger point because of which everybody thinks that idea is right, which was digital footprint of companies was exploding. So every company would necessarily make a Facebook page or a Twitter page or a LinkedIn page now.
Correct.
They were posting jobs more and more online.
Correct.
So hence it was possible for somebody to actually look at it and say, why can't I organize some of this information and then make it into a enterprise grade data and hence make it usable.
Sure.
And so when we started, it was not as if there is so much exist. Everything was very nascent, and all of us started together. And that is how we are. So we never thought that there's too much competition and we should build for India or something. We thought it's a global play, we should build it out.
Sure.
Every customer we met, they had not bought these products at that time.
Right.
So in the first 2 years, people would always ask us, why do I need to buy this?
Oh, okay.
It was not as if why should I replace this product with your product?
Correct.
Nobody has bought many products. It was very nascent. And the first 2 years was all about selling that this is something you should do.
Right.
You need access to data.
Sure.
Data will help you make more transparent decision. You will get much wider coverage.
Right.
And as that happened, after like 2016 onwards, we never had to sell, do you need to buy something? Now, then it was more between these 5 things, what should you buy?
Sure. Sure.
And in our business, it was all about quality of data that matters.
Sure. Got it. So Abhishek, I'll take a cue from what you just mentioned about cybersecurity, right? And you clearly said that, hey, if I'd seen this earlier, then I would know which companies to go after. Very valid point. And if you look at both of you, you guys, both Neha and yourself are technologists, which actually helps what you're doing. So my question is, would you see this becoming more driven by, like, let's say an AI? I know AI is being used very loosely nowadays, but I'm still going to ask it, that would you be able to say that, hey, these are the companies which should probably be successful in these sectors because of the data that we already have?
Correct.
Would you see that happening with Tracxn?
So I think I would broadly classify AI as a common theme called advancement. Every time there's an advancement, it is going to take things forward.
Sure.
And I think every company, in every business, like you will keep seeing new advancement that comes up. And as a business, you need to learn how to leverage them instead of being on the wrong side.
Correct.
Right? When internet came, Walmart didn't adopt it as quickly. So hence Jeff Bezos got a chance to have a clean run and then build out a great business.
Sure.
So adapting to change or adapting to advancement is a key necessity for every business. Having said that, I think the way we look at AI is, I will draw a parallel for that. You have Google Maps. Google Maps tells you what to do, where to go, how much time will it take. And that's a phenomenal technology. But for that to work, you need base data.
Correct.
And the way we see our business is that one part of the business is about building that base data. Google Map needed that base data of all the locations. You can use a lot of technology to automate that, but that good quality base data is really the starting point.
Right.
And one part of our business is that.
Sure.
Second part of the business is, and to use these new technologies, new intelligence to make it more and more actionable and insightful. So that is where this whole new wave of AI, which can actually break much newer barriers, is very interesting. Okay. And we can't wait for the day when it becomes smart enough that a lot of the insights can be drawn from here. To give you an example, we look at cybersecurity as a space. We have mapped that data into a lot of taxonomies and a lot of data points. Once you have this quality data, then you can build very interesting algorithms on top of it. So we have a lot of scores, intelligence already built on top of it. But as it gets advanced, you can actually predict a lot of interesting things which were not possible before.
Sure.
So I think every journey will be always based on that. So you need good quality based data, and then you wait for the algorithms to grow up to a point where you can really leverage them. So that's how we think about our business.
So investments can happen based on these scores. Is that what you're saying? That
absolutely. So
that predictable?
I'll tell you, it will not become like self-driving car where
okay, go ahead.
But
sure.
It will
get more and more data oriented and more algorithm oriented. To give you an example, today practically in consumer goods and SaaS, Robo VC will get built for the first. These are two markets where Robo VC will get built first because everything is so easily benchmarkable, and you see a lot of actually VCs starting to work on that. But again, for somebody to say that this SaaS company is a winner, you will need good base data. Correct. And that is what the step one for this whole thing is. Sure. And then once this gets evolved, we will actually be the first one to actually release a model on SaaS which says that these are the companies which are breaking barriers.
So even reverse, if I look at it a little differently, so you're saying one is you're building a score to say this company will do well because of these specific things. Correct. Do you see a reverse model where you can tell startups that, hey, these are few things you can do to become a good company? Do you think that can happen as well with Tracxn? Or do you think I'm shooting out of nowhere?
Largely people know what needs to do to build a great SaaS company.
Sure.
It is about how you achieve that is where entrepreneurs matter.
Sure.
So I think that is not a secret sauce in our opinion. If you are building a great consumer brand, you know what 3 things to solve.
Correct.
Right? And I think that is an open book exercise. Even a lot of VCs, even when you go at a later stage where you have some revenue, some cohort matrices to show people, you can see that this is what matters.
Sure.
And all of us day in and day out look for these matrices and build things towards building either engagement or retention, net dollar expansion. These are all sort of known secret sauces. Sure. Some of them new will come, but I think eventually hard part is how do you achieve it. Correct. Right? And with Purple Quarter also, it's not something that people have not thought of. Right. You said that, look, you can build a great business by helping people hire CTOs, but how was the hard part? And you are what you are because you did that better than everybody else, or you did it at a level which was groundbreaking as compared to everything else that was available. Sure. So I think that's how we see this whole investment world.
This is exciting because it's comparable to a CIBIL score, right? The way you're saying a score, this is very comparable to that. And that actually makes, giving me goosebumps right now, because if I can think of it from a VC's world, it'll become fairly simpler. That's how I was looking at the whole piece.
So it will add more objectivity. It may or may not become simpler because like every advancement, it is a level playing field.
Sure.
So as much as it will help you, it will also help others.
Got it.
So it will help the good and the bad.
Right.
So hence, it will become equally hard to win a deal. It will remain equally hard to sort of add enough value to the founders.
Sure.
So because these are not going to be proprietary, secret sauces. This will be an open secret sauce.
Correct.
And everybody will have access to it.
So, the reason why I was talking about the VC side is you've been an investor yourself and you're still an investor. You've invested in multiple companies, right? So, what are few things you look at now, just moving away from Tracxn, asking you as an investor, if you want to invest in a company, what are 3 things or even 4 things you think of when you actually look at a company?
So, I think the way you look at company changes significantly with stage. So, if somebody is looking at if I were an investor as an angel or seed stage, I would broadly look at the market. Is there a clear white space? Is it a blue ocean? Is it a defensible model? Or does it look like something which will be defensible? Does this sound like a great team on the paper? Do they have experience? If I take this entire story to Series B, suddenly you have a lot of data to look at. You can look at cohort, you can look at retention, you can look at how customers are liking it. You can do actually customer surveys, you can talk to 100 customers and see how much it matters to them. So these things change significantly with stage. And I think so at very, very early stage, it is about promise.
Sure.
And you sort of try to project and see, is it a white space? It is a large business, is it defensible? And that's what matters more. And obviously team is a first barrier everybody has to cross. And within that, I think you look at how methodical they are in solving problems. And because how is the hard part? And you need to get some comfort that these guys are people who are able to find some house. And there are always early signs. So even when we met Flipkart for the first time, there was enough early signals to say that they are raising a lot of bar in execution on solving problems. And that's what gives you comfort that they will be able to tackle new challenges.
Right.
You are running a business for a while now. Every day you will encounter a new challenge. You have to find a great answer for that. Right. And you have to consistently raise bar in solving problems as compared to everybody else that exists in the market. Sure. And that is what you evaluate at early stage. Sure.
Can we deep dive and talk a little more about when you were involved in that Flipkart, when you were actually pushing everybody to say, hey, invest in Flipkart as an e-commerce company?
Correct. So I met them in early 2008. So they had just started like 6 months back. When we met them, there were 2 founders and 5 packers. That was how early it was.
Sure.
And they also came from programming background. So they were not as if they had done operations or business earlier. So and a lot of people had that kind of skepticism that how will they manage it will require a lot of warehouses, a lot of delivery boys. So how would somebody manage that? Right. And at that time also India didn't have as much capital. It was very hard to imagine that somebody could raise actually 50 million. That was unheard of. Okay. And but what you could clearly see is that Amazon was large in US. So somebody will build Amazon in India. It may be Amazon or it may be somebody else. That was still debatable. Right. But somebody will build it. And I think early execution was very strong. Just the bottoms up signal was impossible or almost hard to ignore. Sure. And we knew from Amazon's story that this is a business which will scale, it will become defensible because the more technology you put it into operations, the more reliable it becomes. The cost reduces, and hence it is going to be a consolidative business than a fragmented business. And hence it sort of made sense to sort of back a company which has raised so much bar in. And this is a time when I would order book from some e-commerce companies and it will not show up for 30 days. I tried that multiple times. Half of it would show up. You don't know what happened to the remaining half, no refunds. There is no easy way to reach out to them. So that process was really broken. And for a lot of us who were working for large MNCs who were based in US, you wanted that kind of experience. So we knew that somewhat audience was also getting created. People were ready to pay reasonable amount of money to get a good service. Their expectation was higher. Sure. They were not ready to go out, spend 2 hours, sweat it out and get a book. Right. They wanted it at home. They wanted it conveniently. They wanted it when they felt like they need something. Sure. I could wait for 2 days, but I can't wait for 30 days. Right. And they were able to sort of, at least in a small way, they were able to sort of break those barriers and people were really excited. There were tweets after tweets every day talking about their service. Sure. So that was very clear that somebody can execute to that level. So you have to work with them and make that thing.
Got it. So in Traction as well, when people use it, and since I've looked at your the platform, so there are these lovely terminologies that you guys have come up with, right? Like Sunicon, Unicorn, Minicon. In fact, we use it when we talk to technologists. How did you guys even think of putting it in these bars? Did you have something we call at our end called the recruiter gut, right? When we go and look at a company, you say you want to invest in them, they look like a unicorn. So is it because of that, or was there again thought process around it?
So I think when we started, that was the time I think Aline Lee coined the word unicorn in TechCrunch. So I think we were obviously looking for sort of extrapolating that logic and seeing, so if there is a Series C investor, can we shortlist like some interesting companies for them? And we realized that not all, like funding metric cannot be the only metric because there is still a lot of color there.
Right.
So it was an in-house coined term. This is something I will always remain proud of because I coined that term Sunicon and Minicon. So it was more to help investors highlight those companies which we thought were interesting. And the reason we were able to do this is because we had a sector specialist team. So there is one person who has looked at all the cybersecurity companies so far. And when they see a new company, they are able to take a call saying that this looks better than everybody else. So when they see a Meru and an Ola, they can say that, look, Ola is different than Meru because they have been looking only at that sector for a while. So for somebody who's looking at very wide sectors, it is harder to take that call. But if you have just specialized in one thing, and you can relate to it because Purple Quarter also specializes in one thing, right?
Correct.
So once you specialize in one thing, your judgment will become slightly better than the person who's looking at multiple things.
Sure.
And that is what sort of helped us sort of mark these things, and they are reasonably well received. We now we have an award which are primarily based on Sunicon, Minicon ratings.
Okay.
And people come back constantly and tell us that, oh, this is incredible to feel that you have been able to pick some of these largest companies.
Sure.
And so it's a mix of data and intuition.
Right.
And that intuition is based on the depth of the knowledge. So it's practically doing like a PhD in cybersecurity, right? That guy has just looked at thousands of companies.
Interesting. This is very interesting because I think it's a culmination of all of this that you've become a successful investor as well, right? Traction's been supportive. Sure. On the other side, there is this, I think, intuition that you've always carried. Correct. Right, and you've been multiple times founder. This is the third time that you're a founder yourself. Right. So do you think all this actually has played a phenomenal role in whatever you're doing?
Oh, absolutely. I think, my previous company was a consumer company. This is an enterprise company. So you at least see both sides of the place. And I think my horizon most expanded when I worked with Accel for 3 years. That was the time I probably met 1,000 founders. And the interesting part about that job was that every day somebody new will come and explain what is the new innovation or disruption that happened in that market.
Correct.
So it is like a crash course in everything in business. Sure. So at the end of 3 years, you know a lot of people, and you also broadly understand how market trends happen. And over this 13-year journey, you are also able to see what succeeds and what doesn't. So there's a feedback loop that also completes. So if you draw a parallel, if you have placed a lot of CTOs in, let's say, 15 years, then you know which CTOs worked, what were you looking at, and then some of that intuition will get built over time. So that is also another thing that plays a big role. Sure. So that width of experience really helps. Right. And then again, on day-to-day basis, I use the platform a lot personally. So I read about a lot of interesting companies. I do a lot of QA myself. So during that process, I learn a lot about these companies that are scaling globally. And hence it sort of it's like a skill. The more you do it, the better you become at it. So that's how I see it.
I think the other day when we were chatting, you also mentioned about how much technology is actually evolved within Traction, right? Even the reports that you actually look at is all automated. I was kind of shocked when I heard that because these are like very lengthy reports that you guys pick up for domains. Can you talk a little bit about how technology is improvised for Traction as well?
No, so I think we have two broad theses on which we build this company. So one was, tomorrow has to be better than today. Right. So everything that we do today, tomorrow we have to find a way so that it takes lesser energy or it takes lesser mind share. And which also sort of goes hand in hand with like automate everything. Right. Anything that can be automated, just automate it. And so these were two broad barriers. And then initially a lot of customers were asking for reports from us saying that, look, I'm investing in this company. Can you put up some material which I can use in my submission deck or DD report? Sure. So we used to prepare some case-by-case things, right? So somebody was looking at, let's say, Kickstarter. They want to know how it compares with everybody or what is that happening in that market. So we prepared that long note that how is the funding meaning crowdfunding? What kind of investors are investing? Is there increased momentum, decreased momentum? What are the customers saying? So when we started collating everything, we figured out that there is some reusability among these reports. So we started defining a format which works for these people. So if somebody is investing in crowdfunding, we said that these are 50 things you tell them, and sort of that is a comprehensive material. And then we started thinking about it. It was very bottoms up thought that, look, when I draw on a PPT, it actually means that a code goes and stores something, and then the line is drawn. Why can't I just push that thing in the code, and then my PPT will get generated? And then we started exploring, and we realized that these APIs exist, and we started building on top of this. So we built the first version of Microsoft Stack, and but I think we realized that their API was not as strong as other things that were available. So we actually moved to Google Stack completely, and we reached a point where we were able to, on a single click, take the data of cybersecurity from the platform, put it in the formats that we have put in, and then get out a PPT. And everything else was manual. So we figured out what to make, that was decided manually, and then converting it to PDF, uploading on the platform. Over time, we realized that we could even automate that. So now we generate like 5,000 reports a quarter. Like not one person get involved. The calendar is automated, pulling of data is automated, it converts it to PDF, uploads it on the platform. How do we describe that report? Everything is automated.
5,000 reports a quarter.
And
that's a lot.
And over time, you find like a lot of corner cases, right? If report is small, do this. If report is large, do this. So we all formatted all of that, and now it is fully automated.
This is brilliant. This is really nice. I'm sure the audience, the VCs and the investors who are listening to this, it'll be super helpful if they actually look at this report, right? Because I think it gives a complete information about not just what they need to see in the domain, but the global landscape as well. What they need to be comparing with, the whole stats, right? So I think this will be super helpful. Just deviating from Tracxn and all of it, I want to just touch upon, you've been founder 3 times. How much do you think a tech head or technology head who comes in and joins you is important? So can you share a few instances where it's worked for you or not worked for you?
No, so I think I keep telling people one thing, that look, the reason Amazon exists is because that Walmart was slow to respond to change or technology wave, right, or technology advancement. And the whole reason startups exist is because new companies will do a better job at adopting new things than compared to an existing system. Right. And if you are weak at that new advancement, then why are you better than this previous company which has so much other strengths, right? Walmart had deep expertise in sourcing. They had dedicated factories which make, there'll be like 10 factories which make just towels for Walmart. So which means their cost will be cheaper, their supply chain will be better, their quality of material will be better. And if you were to beat them, your only tool is that new advancement that has happened. So you better be significantly better than them. And as the advancement shifts, so when the next advancement is AI, if your AI team is not significantly better than existing players' teams, why will you win? Correct. Right? And that is why I always personally thought that we were always building in companies where technology was a big advancement. And hence your tech head has to be significantly better than whatever exists with them. Sure. And it's not 1 or 2 notches above, at least 3 notches above. Sure. So I had always over-invested in technology teams. And my association with Deepak is almost 10 years long. And during that period, he has helped me hire 3 tech heads so far. Actually, it's 100%. All my tech heads has been hired through his help. And I think if you don't do a good job there, you will eventually the previous generation player will catch up with innovation. Right? So your job is to be so good at it so that they take much longer than you, and then you get distribution before they sort of get the innovation. Sure. So this is a constant battle between how long do they take to like adopt to innovation versus how long do you take to build it and distribute it. Right. So every time there is an advancement in things, there will be a window of opportunity where you can create a new company. Like Tesla got created when whole EV and self-driving came. Correct. And the previous generation players were slower to respond to it. And they're really good players, right? Toyota is a great company, right? But it was just slower. And if they are not doing a good job at self-driving car and EV, then they will not win because they have superb distribution. They have a great brand name. Correct. So you always have to over-invest in that advancement that is happening. And that is a key to the founders. And I think with Deepak, the experience was also very interesting. So when I was hiring for Urban Touch, our VP engineering, right. So at that time, I think it was still like, he was also in early days. This is like 10 years back, right? 2011. So he said that I'll send you one person and why don't you go and meet him? And his profile was somewhat unusual for a VP engineering. He had done an MBA from IIM Lucknow. And he has done undergrad from some college I had not completely heard of. So I was telling Deepak, why don't you send me at least one more profile? But he was very insistent, ki, sir, you go and meet him. And by then I had some experiences with Deepak, which I'll also talk about in some time.
Sure.
So I had started to trust his intuition. I went and met this person. He was Qasim.
Right.
And it was an instant click. I met him. I said that this is done. So Deepak said, I told you, sir, you have to meet him, and he didn't believe it because it just sounds, it just sounds wrong, right? How can that happen?
Sure.
So I actually went personally with Sachin when he was meeting Mukesh Mansur.
Right.
And it happened. And that's when he told me about Qasim a year later. I was somewhat open to the idea that the first candidate can get selected. And so I think these were my two experiences with hiring VP Engineering with Deepak. And so far, I think if this is my core skill, and if somebody can really solve it for me, what else do I want?
Sure, sure.
So that's my brief experience with Deepak. And then eventually that practice got spinned off and became Purple Quarter and New Avatar.
That's right.
And I'm glad I could get a chance to get involved with both ANSI and Purple Quarter.
Sure.
So that has been a very memorable experience for me.
So I think the whole piece here also, the point that we could highlight on is every company needs a good technology leader. Rather than saying great, the right technology leader.
Right.
And it's worked well for you in your case because you also believe that technology is an important part for you to advance and look at your company in a broader spectrum, right? And this is a message, I think through this podcast, we are sending out to multiple people who are thinking of getting on to becoming technology companies, right? From offline to online. If you look at COVID, that's been pretty prominent, yeah. And the other piece I wanted to ask you, Abhishek, is if you can actually spare a few words and talk to the audience for this podcast. There are two separate audiences, so you can address this separately. One, people wanting to join your company. I'm sure the enthusiasts who are watching this will say, hey, I want to join such a cool company, which is able to come up with a score, right? Yeah. The other set of audience would be people who want to understand how do they reach out to you to use Tracxn as a platform. Right, globally as well. So if you can address these two, please.
No, I think if somebody wants to work at a place which helps innovation, accelerate innovation, so whatever work you do will eventually help companies get funded faster or companies get acquired faster, right? So the impact of that work is very high.
Sure.
Secondly, I think we have done a lot of technology breakthroughs. Like Report is just one of the examples, and this is something which was among the first few automations that we have done, right? And we have done a bunch of them. The platform that you see, we have done a lot of groundbreaking work there. So there is a lot of good work that is being done. It's a place where you just can focus on doing a good work and everything else will happen.
Sure.
It is not a place where you have to sort of get along with your bosses or you have to do any political things to move forward. You can just focus, do great work. And we, as a culture, we also want to make sure that it's a gracefully aggressive culture. So we don't want people to work like 12 hours. We say, look, you do quality 8-9 hour work, you do it in the slotted time.
Sure.
So every day is highly efficient and yet it is not going to burn you. Correct. So we think it's a 10-20 year journey. So we run it at a marathon pace. We don't want people to go back home and feel that I didn't do much today.
Sure.
So it's a combination of graceful and aggressive.
Okay.
And you can just focus on doing quality work and things move forward. Impact of the work is eventually hence very high. So startups are very exciting and our job is to we are supporting this ecosystem, right? So that is very exciting. And if people who want to buy a subscription, I think they can reach out to me at Abhishek@Tracxn, or our websites have enough sort of CTS for you to leave a detail and somebody reaches out.
Sure.
We have almost 24/7 sales team, so somebody would reach out back to you very, very quickly.
Right, right. I'm sure people would want to actually have access to your platform, and also people would want to come and join a company like Tracxn because of two primary aspects which I'd like to highlight. One is, I like the part where you're clearly saying this is going to be a lot more innovative. Improvement every month is your core. That's what we were chatting, right? This is like something which is which excites any youngster who'd want to see improvements every month. The second piece which I think is brilliant is there's a lot of impact. And you can see that impact happening. I'm sure you and Neha would be feeling this like on a daily basis, right? There would be like this deja vu, hey, we had thought of this company and today look at it, it's doing so well. So there would always be that chat.
Right. No, I get enough boxes of goodies sometimes saying that, oh, we got funded because of you. We didn't know, we were just sitting doing our work. Some VC wrote to us and gave us a term sheet and went away. We never realized what happened.
All right.
And then after the term sheet was signed, they realized that they discovered us through traction and got funded. So this is a very common story.
Sure. No, this is really good. In fact, I think most of the founders who are watching this podcast should also know about traction. That's how I would like to also talk about, right? Because it's important that people understand that this is getting relayed through a score. And that's how even we look at when we are paying back our dues, right? We know there is a civil score. So we're also more obvious on the things that we do. So is there anything else you'd like to share at this point of time, Abhishek?
I think it was great to be here. And I think I tell everybody that, look, today as a country, we are at a place which is significantly better than ever before. Having said that, we are still at a place where things are just getting started. 10 years later, it will be like, I have made this statement multiple times saying that 10 years later, startups will have 1,000 executives, which will be paid more than $500,000 a year.
Wow.
So there will be at least 200 CTOs whose salaries will be more than $500,000.
True.
Which essentially means that whatever you are doing today, just focus on doing a great work. And because the way things are evolving here, the great work is going to get appreciated more. So just drop everything else, focus on wherever you are working, just do a great work, raise the bar for yourself, get best out of you, and everything else will follow. I don't know if I could have said this 20 years back, but today we are at a place just competency matters more than everything else. So all you have to do is keep doing what you're doing and get best out of yourself.
Sure. No, you've left me speechless there. So we're going to replay this time and again, about the last bit that you mentioned, because I think it's super useful for people to actually look at it. Right. Thank you so much for being on our podcast, Abhishek. It was lovely having you, lovely chatting with you as well.
Thanks, Rupa. Thanks for calling me here. I'm really glad to be a part of it.
All right. Thank you.